Good morning, everyone. Welcome to today's hearing. My name is Councillor Baclini, and I shall be chairing the meeting. My colleagues, Councillor Ball, Councillor Kelly, and I comprise today's subcommittee. Sam Kirkham, who is the clerk to the subcommittee, will be minuting the meeting, and Hatoun Zeb is the legal advisor to the subcommittee. You will have all received or seen the agenda pack within which is contained the licensing officer's report with details of the application in section 1. To confirm, we are dealing with the application to review a premises license made by Bob Deere at Bilton Foods and Wines, 52 Bilton Road, Perivale, UB6 7DH. In accordance with procedure, I shall invite the applicant to present the application, answer any questions, and call any witnesses. I'll also invite those who have made representations or objections to make their representations, answer any questions, and call for any witnesses. At the conclusion of the hearing, the subcommittee, accompanied by the legal advisor and the committee democratic services officer, will retire to consider its decision. The decision will be given at the end of the meeting and confirmed in writing within 5 working days. If the panel cannot reach a decision today, you will be notified in writing within 5 working days of the panel's decision. Before we start, I'd like to check if we have any apologies for absences and substitutions, please. Councillor Gallant?
Yes, Chair. I mean, I've replaced Councillor Ball, but that was established some time ago.
Thank you. Any declarations of interest to be noted? No. Any matters to be considered in private? No. I'll move on now to ask all present to introduce themselves, please. I will start with Mr. Noel. If you can please introduce yourself and state what's your relationship to the establishment, please.
Yes, good morning, everybody. Noel Samaru from NTAD Consultants. I'm here to represent the applicant.
Thank you. Bob Deere, can you please introduce yourself?
Certainly, Bob Deere, Licensing Enforcement Officer for Ealing Council and the applicant.
Thank you. I just wanted to clarify with Mr. Samaru, is your applicant attending the hearing today?
No, he's not.
Thank you. Okay, Bob, the licensing officer, can you please start presenting the application? Thank you.
Chair?
Yes.
Just in the interest of having him to log in, but we've got Jamie Foster in buffering. So
oh, he's in now. Okay.
And it might be good,
yes,
you know,
yes, I haven't seen.
Before we start the substantive matter, if he
yes,
can,
Mr. Jamie Foster, can you please tell us who you are and why you're here today? Jamie, can you hear us? I think that, oh, now that he's connecting the audio. Okay.
I guess we should keep going then, Councillor.
We will get back.
Yeah.
We will get back to Jamie in a minute. Okay. So, Bob, please, can you start presenting the application?
Yes, certainly. Thank you, Chair. This is a premises that have been licensed since April 2007, when the license was transferred to Elena Amafuri and Annelish Prabha Sukhakaran, and I apologise for my pronunciations, on the 2nd of October 2020. The DPS is Mr. Sudhakaran. The premises have been visited previously on the 5th of July 2017 when illicit alcohol was found, but obviously Mr. Hakaram was not involved in the premises at that time. But it's got a history, it shows it's got a history of illicit products on the premises. On Wednesday, the 21st of April 2021, I went there after complaints from that the shop was selling high-strength Polish beers to males who were standing outside, resulting in fights and antisocial behaviour. Inspection of the alcohol revealed behind the counter that there were 17 bottles of 70 cl size of Polish vodka that had no UK duty paid stickers on, and the duty-free seal was still over the necks of the bottles. There was also 51 20 cl bottles of Polish vodka which still had the duty-free seals over the necks of the bottles. The shopkeeper could not supply any invoices or proof that they had purchased from a registered wholesaler, and these were signed over for destruction. On Wednesday, the 26th of July 2023, officers from licensing visit the premises with Home Office immigration enforcement officers as part of a joint compliance visit. And when they entered, there was one male in the shop on his own. The officers introduced themselves and the purpose of our visit. The male was found to be illegal in the UK after his visa had expired. He admitted this offence. The shopkeeper attended the premises, and during an interview by immigration officers, he admitted employing the male without seeing any proof or right of work and paying him cash in hand. The premises licence holder was then visited again. So I'll just get my second statement that hopefully has everybody seen as a copy of. This was served. This is on the 15th of. No,
Jamie Foster.
Joined the meeting.
Right. I think Jamie's just pronounced himself, but we visited after the review papers were served, after more intelligence that the premises were stocking illicit products. When we went into the premises, there was a male behind the counter who could not produce any ID. I asked him to call his boss, and I told him the purpose of our visit, and he started contacting his boss by mobile phone. He then said he's outside. When asked what he meant, he said he's in the van outside. There was only one van, it was a blue van. So I went, identified myself to a male and female that were inside the vehicle and asked them to get out of the vehicle. Initially, they refused. And after some persuasion, the owner, Mr. Sukharam, did get out, but locked his wife in the vehicle. I told him the purpose of our visit and that cigarettes had been found on the shop worker inside the shop. He refused to open the van, so the trading stands officer, Mr. Gohari, came out and explained all the powers that he had, which include seizing the vehicle and the money that was laid on the seat of the van. There was one packet of cigarettes on the dashboard that were non-duty paid, but these were allegedly the shopkeeper and excuse me. And then Mr. Gowrie then opened the doors from inside the vehicle. When we went in the back of the vehicle, we found several bags of cigarettes, and in total there was 3,400 cigarettes seized from that time. There are a couple of photos. I found cigarettes hidden in the rear shutter casing up above. There were 600 cigarettes in there. When I spoke to Mr. Sukharam about them, he and the worker, he said that he was an asylum seeker, and I asked Mr. Sukharam to forward me details of a piece of paper that he showed me on his phone, a screenshot, sorry, that stated this male's name, and he was an asylum seeker. And up to this date, I've never received a copy of that information, so I can't pass it on to immigration and check the man's status in the shop. Obviously, I've got Jamie Foster, who is one of the chief immigration officers, to answer any questions regarding the civil penalty that has been paid in full, and shortly after the serving notice, it was paid in full. So if the committee would like to ask any questions, that is my evidence in this case. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deere. I will now invite everyone present to ask questions to Bob if they have any questions. I will start with the my fellow councillors. Councillor Gallant, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks, Mr. Deere, for the presentation. Just a quick question. In 2017 and in fact 2021, there was no action taken. There were no reviews undertaken at either of those times. Is that correct?
That is correct, sir. The first occasion, obviously, was a different owner at that time. And the second occasion, it would have been a first warning.
It would have been a first warning.
Yes,
okay.
indeed.
Okay, right.
Yes.
And you consider that to be a sufficient warning, that relevant to 2023, 2 years later. So you weren't prepared to give them a second warning, obviously.
No, obviously the seriousness of the offence and the excuse me, the fact that it'd been warned once before. So no, it was a review at that stage.
Okay, thanks very much. And can I just ask also, the Polish beer, what is the strength? What's the ABV of the Polish beer that was found in the premises?
That was 6% at that time.
6%. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Thank you.
But he has no conditions on his licence that prohibits him from selling high-strength beer.
But that's a question. Obviously, we talk about that a lot. I just want to see what the ABV is on the Polish beer that was being was offered there. Thanks.
Yes, sir.
Thank you very much.
Councillor Kelly, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Mr. Deere. Start of your representations, you said you went to premises because of complaints about street drinking. Could you sort of expand on what those complaints were? How did you receive them? To which department? Which, if there is any, are they referenced anywhere? Thank you.
They would have been on service requests, and some of the complaints have come via the community safety unit from concerned residents. And in fact, when I served the review, there were two heavily intoxicated Eastern European males outside the shop who, as soon as I started to take a picture of the blue poster, approached me and started asking questions. But I couldn't really understand a word they were trying to express to me. And when we was in the shop on the third occasion, a male came into the shop, purchased 1 can of beer, and in fact came back 3 times to change it, each time going higher and higher and higher in strength. It was unopened. He started off, he said he's got the wrong one, and in fact when he put the last can on the counter, which was Carpaccio at 9%, the wife of the DPS, who was taken over the sales because the young male who was unidentified had left the shop, said, "Oh, you're a regular. Okay, I'll put it in the book." I.e. credit, sir, which they're not allowed to do.
Is that correct, Mr. Deere, that you're not allowed to give credit by law in law?
Yes, you're not allowed to give credit on obviously most off license. I appreciate do it, but
do they?
Yeah, we often find little black books, sir.
Okay. Thank you.
Councillor Gallant. You're on mute, Councillor Gallant.
Thanks, Chair. Thank you very much. Just the incident you just described, can you give us the date, what you've just described on that incident? And I'm just checking that the final visit was actually on the 29th of November, 2023.
Yes, sir, that is correct. For some reason, I printed off 2 pages. That's what confused me when I was trying to read at the start.
That's okay.
But yes, that is correct. That was the last incident.
And the incident you just described, what was the date of that?
That was the 29th, yes.
That's the 29th. Thank you very
Yes.
much. Thank you,
Sir.
Thanks.
Mr. Knoll, do you have any questions to ask Mr. Bobdir?
No, it's fine. Thank you.
Okay. Bob, I have one question. When you were presenting your case, you just mentioned money. You saw that there was an amount of money inside the van. Sorry, you're on mute.
Yep. Yeah, it was on the front seat in between Mr. Sukharan and his wife. It was a large amount of cash. We didn't take it. We didn't, but it was just explained to him that we could have seized it under the proceeds of crime because obviously involved in the illicit sale of products.
Okay, thank you. I will move now in this case to Mr. Knoll. Can you please present your application?
Yes, good morning, everybody. To be perfectly honest with you, I'm not here this morning to try and defend the indefensible. The work that Bob Deere and his team have done has been quite extensive, and I understand that Mr. Sudhakaran has had warnings in the past. The reason I'm here today is to try and express to the committee that he is very sorry for what he did, and to just outline the situation as far as this premises is concerned. It was transferred in 2020, as Bob said, but it wasn't transferred to Mr. Sudhakaran. He is the premises license holder, and he is the DPS, but he is not the owner of the shop, and he is not the owner of the lease of that shop. So any action today against him doesn't really affect him. It affects the person who has put the money up and owns the shop, who is very, very upset about what his friend, supposed friend, has been doing in the shop. With regards to the immigration offence, yes, he put his hands up to that. Not that he wanted to, but I don't think he had much choice. And I think there was a £10,000 fine that was paid in full. When you have somebody that has done this during the 28-day period to actually carry on selling illicit cigarettes, it's just not for me to sit here and try and defend it, because there is no defence for it. What I'm suggesting to the committee is, rather than revoke this licence, which is what's obviously being requested by Bob, is to allow a period of time through suspension for me to transfer the licence to the owner of the premises, who actually owns the lease on the premises, who has said he will operate the shop himself, and we can appoint a new DPS. Mr. Anil Sudhakaran is no longer at the premises. He's been sacked, and there is a long-term friendship that has now been lost because of his actions in the shop. I know generally in these cases the committee does look at revocation. However, under these circumstances, what I'd ask the committee to look at is a period of suspension to allow me to transfer the licence from Mr. Sudhakaran to Mr. Mena Khan, who is the, as I said, who is the owner of the premises and the owner of the company that operates those premises. In essence, Mr. Sudhakaran was just an employee. Alina, who was the other name that was on the premises license, from what I understand, has not been there for quite some time. Why that license wasn't changed when she left, I have no idea. I wasn't involved in it. So, yes, if the committee want to ask me any questions, I'll try my best to answer them, but there's nothing really anything else I can really say. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. I believe Councillor Kelly has a question for you. Go ahead, Councillor Kelly.
Thank you much, Mr. Samaru. It's good to hear. You know, the mea culpa is very useful, and it saves, in my view, a lot of time.
Sure.
Interrogation. So thank you. I understand that you're a licensing agent and provide training. You know,
that's right. Yeah.
Et cetera. So you'll be aware of conditions and how conditions will enable any new applicant to make it easier to uphold the licensing objectives. Now, given what Mr. Deere said about street drinking and no conditions on the license, I just want to give you the opportunity really to explore and recommend. You know, can you recommend to the committee any conditions?
I think over the years, I've been a licensing agent for nearly 15 years, and things have changed over the 15 years, and the street drinking, the disposal of cans into people's gardens and everything else become far more prevalent than they were before. So we could look at the strength of the beers and ciders that are sold from the premises. We could also look at the numbers of some that are sold, because as Bob mentioned in his presentation, generally the street drinkers will come in and buy one can at a time. You know, if they can only buy a minimum of 4, they don't tend to like to do that. So that's 2 things we could look at. One of the other things that I've also done with other councils is to ensure that all the alcohol that's on sale is labelled with the price tag and the name of the shop that's on that price ticket, which allows the licensing enforcement team, if they find cans thrown away, they can find out, you know, who's selling it, especially if you have a condition on the license that they can't sell everything over 5.5% or whatever it may be. The other thing we could do, as far as Mr. Sudhakaran is concerned, is condition the license. He is not allowed on the premises, because this is not an opportunity for us to try and wiggle our way around a revocation or anything else. This is to get this man out of the premises, allow the owner of the premises to run those premises properly and within the confines of the law, and uphold the licensing objectives. And he can't do that with Mr. Sudhakaran at the premises, obviously. So he has dismissed him. You could condition the license that he's no longer allowed on the premises. If you allow us to transfer it to the owner of the premises, and we can appoint a new DPS. I'm not saying that can be done overnight, but over maybe, I don't know, especially over the Christmas period, that we could, or he can find a suitable DPS to take over and run those premises correctly, and work with the licensing team, rather than just hiding things in his van or whatever he's been doing. So thank you.
Councillor Gallant, please go ahead. Ask your question.
Thank you, Chair. So, Mr. Samaru, the question is, this also a question about cigarettes, non-duty paid cigarettes, and we know that there's a very good reason why you know, the regulations are such, and this is actually about preserving law rather than licensable substances. Now, can you actually confirm? Are you saying that there were always non-duty paid cigarettes available in that shop right through the period? Is that your surmise? That's the first question.
I'm going to be perfectly honest with you, Councillor. I cannot surmise that at all.
Right.
And whether they have had them always in the shop or not, I have absolutely no idea. I can only go based on the evidence that Bob has produced.
Right.
And if we look at it, probably, but right. I couldn't say that's the case. One thing I would like to add to your question is that The owner of that business, which is a company called M&S Food and Wine Limited, that's owned by Mr. Manakan, has never profited or was never aware that they were selling illicit cigarettes. So any profits that were made from those sales went straight into the pocket of Mr. Sudhakaran. And that's why, they've fallen out. They've lost their friendship. He's very, very upset. So basically what I'm saying is that the person who would be punished by this is somebody who has had absolutely nothing to do with it.
Okay, so there's the other question. I'm going to ask it. You've sort of answered it. How long has Mr. Minakan been the actual owner of the premises, or his M&S Food and Wine Limited? And are we to believe that he had absolutely no idea over that period that any of this activity was going on at all?
Absolutely none at all. He lives in Birmingham, in the Birmingham area, where he does own, I think, 3 or 4 shops that have all run perfectly well, never had any issues. And he had absolutely no idea. The only thing that he did find out about at a later stage of prosecution, I think, was the immigration problem. That was a friend of Mr. Sudhakaran that he had employed there to try and help him. Even then, he didn't know about it until the prosecution took place, because the prosecution was against the company and not Mr. Sudhakaran himself. As for this later incident that happened on the 29th of November, that was the straw that broke the camel's back, really, as far as he was concerned.
But had he been aware of the other visits? Was he aware?
No, nothing at all. Not aware of it.
He wasn't aware of the visits in 2021 or no. 2023. He had no idea that actually even happened.
Wasn't aware that any illicit cigarettes were being sold or anything had happened. The first thing that he was aware of was after the prosecution had taken place for the illegal worker.
Yeah. Okay, well, thanks. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Noel. I will move now to the Home Office officer, Jamie Foster. Would you like, please, to...
Hello. Sorry, can you hear me there now?
Yes.
I do apologise to everybody in the committee. Unfortunately, Home Office isn't supported by or doesn't support Zoom. It's Microsoft Teams. So apologies for my late arrival into it. I don't have. So I represent West London immigration team. I wasn't actually on the enforcement visit that day. But due to some staff illness and annual leave, I've come on to answer any questions any of you may have. I believe the central licensing alcohol team from the Home Office have already submitted some supplementary evidence, which I don't have anything further to add on that, as I think as we've just established that the immigration offence was fairly clear, with the manager at the time admitting to employing someone who didn't have the right to work in the UK. So if I can answer anybody's questions, please feel free to fire away.
Thank you. Any of my fellow councillors would like to ask any questions to the Home Office representative? No. Mr. Noel, do you have any questions to ask? Is it
no? Thank you. No, thank you.
Okay.
You're on mute, Chair.
Thank you. Yes, in this case, I will move to summing up. Bob D, would you like, please, to start briefly summing up your presentation?
Yes.
Sorry.
Yes, indeed. Sorry.
Chair.
Yes.
Might be an opportunity before. I hope Bob's going to speak, but via any conditions.
Yes, conditions. Yes. So
Bob obviously is and Hattie will be fully afraid of our policy and what is our model conditions. So with that, I'll let Bob.
Thank you. Yes, I've noted here that Mr. Noel had offered to, in case an suspension was given, he offered to appoint a new DPS, and the shop will have the alcohol on sale to be labeled and marked, and he will work with the shopkeepers about the beer strength. Am I right?
Yeah, I think the last point is important about the strength of beer.
Yes, Mr. Law?
So there's one other thing, because the premises license is in the name of Mr. Sudha Karan, just by appointing a new DPS, which is also him, would not negate the situation of him being at the premises. So it was also suggested by myself that we should transfer that license away from him so that he has no responsibility at those premises whatsoever.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Mr. No. I was also wondering if there's any conditions that you could offer regarding street drinkers, like identifying them and not selling, most probably selling to street drinkers. Would this be?
It's always a very difficult encounter because there's no law as such that you can actually relate to. What I've done in the past, it's education down to the people that are running the shop. They know the regular people who are coming in and drinking in the street. So it's putting up signage and telling, there's a signage that we give to shop to say, street drinkers are not permitted, or street drinking is not permitted. We do not sell to street drinkers. And as soon as you reduce the level of ABV, they don't bother to go there because they're looking for something that's a lot stronger than 5.5%.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you. Okay, Bob, will you please start summing up? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Chair. It's a strange case, should we say, because obviously we've got Miss Alina Amafoli, who I don't know where she is related to, where she comes into the story, but Mr. Samaru is quite correct. The name, or the company name, M&S Food, was given to our trained standards officer. And in fact, I've just had clarification from immigration officer there that they paid the £15,000. In fact, it was civil penalty. They paid it through that company. It's the street is a problem. I think there are no real on-licensed premises in Perivale for a certain reason, but off-licenses are rife, especially in Bilton Road. And obviously, if you obviously, I don't think my recommendation will change the fact that this license has had its chances. I appreciate Mr. Mark Cram hasn't been there, but he's obviously given a lease or allowed his business to be run by two very different people, shall I say, from different cultures. They are total disregard for the law. If you was considering suspending it, I would say a minimum of 3 months, or the maximum of 3 months, sorry. And look at conditions of 5.5 ABV, because it's quite true what Mr. Samaru was saying. Street drinkers will not go there, even though you make more money on beer below 5% and below when you buy it from a proper wholesaler, of course, then high strength beer, unless you bought it illegally. And I would also agree that Mr. Sudhakaran and Ms. Amafoli should be banned as a condition on any, if the license does remain. Obviously, you can only put on there, that's the thing, it's during license activities. If they've got no operational means, I don't know why they go there. The van, I'm not too sure. We haven't checked, actually, we didn't check who the van was registered to, whether it's M&S Food or whether it's Mr. Sudhakaran. But I think we should also go for our normal list, go through that normal list of conditions and put on CCTV, signage, single cans, and Mr. Samaru did mention earlier about pricing and putting the name of the shop on it to identify who is selling what beer, and add that as a condition as well. Those are my recommendations. If you decide that it's more proportionate to suspend the license then revoke. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Deere. I'll move to Mr. Knoll. Will you please sum up too, please?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor. Yes, there's not a lot more for me to say really, except that whatever action you take today is really penalising somebody who had nothing to do with and no intention of breaking the law. I understand what Bobby's saying, that if you chose, and I hope you do choose to suspend the licence rather than revoke it, I personally feel a 3-month suspension is not really necessary. It's more to do with the amount of time it would take me to transfer that licence, which is a day, and to find a DPS. Now, as you are all aware, that at today's meeting we do have a 21-day appeal period. So within that 21 days, if we were to transfer the licence and find a new DPS, then there would be no need for what I think is probably going to come in appeal. Now, I don't know in Ealing what the timescale is for hearing magistrates court for appeals. I mean, I heard one, I was at one the other day down at Arran Council, it's 2 years. So rather than go down that road, it would be better to let's deal with it now. Get Mr. Sudhakaran away from the premises, appoint a new premises license holder and a new DPS. And that can be done within a week. Thank you.
Chair, may I just respond to Mr. Samaru so that
yes, please, Ms. Depp, go ahead.
So that he's very clear that the licensing subcommittee will be making their decision based on the evidence presented to them and the evidence heard during this hearing. They do not base their decision on the anticipation that their decision may be challenged by way of an appeal. And Mr. Samaru needs to be very clear about that. The right to appeal any licensing subcommittee decision lies with a premises license holder, but it's not a factor that is considered by this committee in any decision that it will take. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Depp. I will move now to the deliberation. The panel will retire to deliberate.
I'm sorry, Councillor.
Yes, yes.
Mrs. Samaru, really, I want to have as much confidence in your offer as I can. So, the model conditions. You're a trainer. Maybe you're not as familiar with Ealing model conditions as you are with perhaps other local authorities. So, for example, you mentioned CCTV, various things. Challenge 25, refusal book. What about your DPSs? What nature of training they'll undergo, whether your the premise licensing holder would undergo training as well. Maybe he has that training. I want to have as much from you on behalf of your applicant as possible before I go into deliberation.
I think that many of those model conditions are standard conditions throughout the industry. A licensed premises should have CCTV. They must have a refusals book. They must have an incident book. any DPS must have passed a level 2 APLH qualification and have a personal license. And I would also maybe suggest another condition, Councillor, that the premises must always have personal license holder on the premises during the period that alcohol is being served. That makes them more responsible for what they're doing, because they know that their personal license will be taken away. As far as training is concerned, generally, we put on there that any new staff are trained with Challenge 25 and the basics for serving alcohol, not to drunk people, not to people underage, and so on and so forth. And that training should be repeated every 3 months.
Okay. And you are you personally a training provider?
I am a training provider.
Yeah.
Through BIAB. However, BIAB has just recently been sold. I don't know if you're aware. So a new company has taken that over. But yeah, we do provide training for the personal licenses and the full applications for them to the local authority as well.
That's very, very helpful. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you. Any more questions to ask Mr. Noel from Councillor Gallant or Bob Deere? No?
Chair, just one point to clarify. Obviously, earlier in Mr. Samaru's presentation, he stated that this was, or Mr. Markran had other businesses in Birmingham. Obviously,
Yes.
this is should we say, a standalone, as far as I know, in Ealing. I don't know if he's got any in other parts of London. But how sure can we be that he isn't just going to get a friend or something that is going to be given another lease, or whatever Mr. Sukahakaran had? And also, it was mentioned earlier that Mr. Sukharan has left the premises. He's been sacked. So the premises shouldn't be selling alcohol at this moment because there's no DPS on the premises. I just want to confirm that, please.
Thank you. Mr. Noel, would you like to give some information?
Yeah, Bob is quite right. If he has left the premises already, I don't know, but that was the intention from whatever happens at this meeting. He's been told he's going to be dismissed, and that a new DPS and a new premises license holder, should the committee agree, will be appointed. That he had no lease, Bob, on that premises or anything. It's all held by Mr. Mehakaran, who does own 3 or 4 licensed premises in Birmingham, and as far as I'm aware, Bob has not had any issues there. He doesn't own any others in London. Why he owns this one, I honestly don't know, which he took it over in 2020. What I will tell you is that Mr. Sudhakaran and Mr. Menakaran were friends. So I don't know if it was a thing that he did to give Mr. Sudhakaran a job and run the shop, but he obviously didn't do a very good job of it. And as you quite rightly said, it was £15,000. It's cost Mr. Menakaran this stupid incident regarding employing this illegal worker. He's obviously very unhappy about it. So.
Thank you, Mr. Noel. I just wanted to clarify with you. I just noticed that both surnames are the same.
No.
Is it
one is Sudhakaran?
Yes.
And the other one is Mr. Menakaran.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Okay. They're not related at all.
Thank you. Okay, so we will move to the deliberation. The panel now will retire to deliberate together with legal advisor and clerk, and we should reconvene around 12:30. Am I right, Ms. Zeb?
it's up to us, Councillor McLeany. I would recommend sort of 12:45 really. But
Okay, no problem.
we can always,
12:45.
we
Can
reserve
always come
as a
back.
panel
We
to
can
take-
come back later if necessary. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.